This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Very appreciated. It's very helpful. Allows us to see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways you can improve, all that stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And the much-anticipated MJ documentary, The Last Dance, chronicling the last season of the Bulls dynasty, plus, some other intermittent parts of MJ's career, released the first 2 episodes on Sunday, which I imagine, on top of the fact that there are a few things to watch, obviously, there's still some shows that have started back up recently, but overall, there's not a whole lot going on. So, there wasn't really a whole lot of competition with it, but also the fact that it's Michael Jordan, it's a documentary, it's 10 parts, it's been talked about being aired for a couple of years now. I think it was supposed to I thought it was supposed to come out last year. It was teased like 2018, it was supposed to come out last year, and then got pushed back. And then even up until recently, they were still scrambling to get it even done for it now, because it was supposed to come out in June, obviously, but they moved it up because nothing's really going on. They're supposed to release it in coordination with the finals. There's no finals, or at least there won't be anytime soon, so it's like, hey, no reason to hold on to it, so they were scrambling to get it done by April, but it's here. And I said we got the first 2 parts, and from the looks of the first 2 parts, this should be a very, very interesting documentary. I like the way it's done, because it's about the last season, but it's also not, if that makes sense. It's the overarching theme is the last season, the last dance, as we find out. Phil Jackson called this the final run to championship number 6 for the Bulls team, and we'll get into why it was called that in a second. For those that didn't already know, kind of like myself, I know I'm a little younger, so I was 2 the summer of 97. Yeah, so again, I missed all Jordan stuff. I've done research here and there, watched different things about Jordan's time, so I knew some things. I knew this season as a whole was kind of a mess, but this documentary showed it was even more of a mess than I either A, remembered, or B, could have imagined. But yeah, so I like the way it's done, because again, even though it's about the last season, it intertwines and brings in different people that are also encompass different aspects of Jordan's career. So, the first episode, even though there was Phil Jackson was involved, it was mainly just about that last season. Then they kind of just touched on his early years, the college years, getting into the pros in the beginning, stuff like that. And the second episode focused more on Scottie and and kind of what he was going through in the 97 season, also kind of when he first came in and joined the Bulls and all that stuff. And then the next episode, I think, is going to be the next 2 episodes in some way, shape, or form are going to be Rodman, who obviously came onto the Bulls for the second three-peat, was an integral part, kind of a character in of itself. You could do a whole, or maybe have they done a whole 30 for 30 on him? I want to say yes, but yeah. So even if they haven't, he's worth one. But I'm pretty sure they've done one already. It's hard to keep track of all the 30 for 30s ESPN has done at this point. But yeah, I think they've done one on him, and yeah, he's just an interesting character in and of itself. So I'm interested to see how that goes, and also kind of intertwined with that is the Bad Boys Pistons. Obviously, that was a big hurdle Jordan had to get over in his career was finally being able to beat them. And then Rodman was obviously part of that, part of some of those teams. So it makes sense how you kind of tie all those in together. And plus, based on how they're moving things, they're kind of going from like beginning of his like college career to early pros. Like they did the first couple of years of his career. Obviously, the big Celtics performance, which we will get to in the next segment. And then, like I said, the Bad Boys era was late '90s, and that was his last little hump before he started getting to the championships. I guess we'll probably get into those in the coming weeks. Because I like it because done is like interesting. It's not like normally you do a doc and it's about one thing. They kind of go from the beginning, middle, end, maybe start at the end, kind of like work their way through. But like this one, it's like it's about one thing, but also to give you more context as to why this was such a big deal. They're adding in bits and parts and bits and pieces into Jordan's career, throughout his career, to kind of, like I said, add more context and bring more layers into what it is that the team was going through at that time and kind of how they got to that point. Their breaking point almost, if you will. So, and also, I guess from there you can see why it was 10 parts, because there's a lot to discuss leading up to, there's a lot to discuss just on this last season. And clearly, just because all the drama and different things going into the season and kind of through the season and the fallout afterwards, that could be, if they didn't add anything else, they could do at least 4 or 5 parts on just that. And obviously, when you add in other things, it's a Michael Jordan documentary, and not just going to talk about that, you're going to talk about other things too. So it makes sense as to why it kind of all gets mixed in that way. But yeah, so from the highlights from the first part was, obviously I did not realize, it's a weird thing to say because, again, you kind of realize most dynasties and most situations like this are kind of broken up by egos. Like you look at the Patriots, when Brady's not there, whether that's from his ego or from Belichick's ego or from whoever's ego, I don't know, but there's a reason why that broke up. I don't know if ego per se, but the Warriors broke up maybe because of, I don't want to say KD's ego is the right word. Maybe it was like Draymond's ego, thinking he could talk to him any kind of way. In that one game early last season where they had a little scuffle on the bench. We called him all sorts of names that I won't repeat on here. And then that was kind of always the beginning of the end, and also kind of just KD's overall feelings towards the way he was treated by Golden State fans, though it's hard for you to get the same level of love that Steph got, because obviously you weren't there the whole time. But yeah, just like most memorable teams, dynasties, if you will, kind of get broken up by ego. Not everybody can be the Spurs, where you have the same core of guys for 3, 4, 5 championships. It's not a thing, like not really too many issues in between there. It doesn't happen. Look at the Kobe, Shaq, Lakers. Everything was going good until it wasn't, because the egos got involved. Like, those are the kind of things just are pretty synonymous with the end of great eras, and not just sports. Just like you could probably go through history and look up different dynasties, whether it's like civilizations or conquerors or whoever. Things that got broken up, you could probably attribute some of that at least to ego playing a part. So I didn't realize how much. Again, like I said, I realized how much ego could play a part, but I didn't realize how much of that ego was from management, not from like players and coaches. And a lot of that obviously stems from Jerry Krause, who was the GM of the team at the time, and just his overall feelings and I guess his overall opinions of what he was capable of is kind of what led this thing to kind of all go awry before. I guess go right before it even began. Like, there was a chance that you wouldn't even get that last season, like the last championship run, because they were not going to bring Phil Jackson back, and then if that doesn't happen, then Mike doesn't come back, and that's a whole different mess. And that was legitimately on the table in that summer of '97. He was trying to groom Tim Floyd, I believe is what they said in the doc, to be the next guy, and he might have ended up being the next guy. I guess I could look that up, but look like they were trying to put him in sooner rather than later, and MJ was like, "That's not happening." They were talking about it at the podium after the '97 championship. That's how you know how big of a deal this was. There's the fact that this needs to be touched on almost immediately. let me see. I think he was. So I'm looking up. Tim Fortier coached the Bulls from '98 to 2001 until he didn't work out. But yeah, so just his ego, and also I guess don't know how true this is, but there was a funny little meme, or I don't know if it was a meme or a rumor, whatever you want to call it, of the guy from Space Jam, like the alien that ran Moron Mountain, that was kind of supposed to be I'm trying to think of the word. It was supposed to be based on, I guess, if you will, Jerry Krause, and obviously because as you can see, him and MJ by the end did not have a great rapport. So it's kind of funny if that was to be true. If that like the short, stubby, and kind of like I said, he runs more on mountains, so it's not clearly he's not as bright as he thinks he is. It's just that is true. That is kind of funny. Obviously, I don't know if we'll ever know that for certain, but that's kind of what people are running with on Twitter. And again, it's Twitter. You can't believe everything you see. But if that is true, that is kind of funny. But yeah, so yeah, just the whole fact that that whole run kind of almost ended before it even began is crazy to think about. Like it's like MJ said in his press conference, it's like you want to be able to defend your title, and then all right, if we lose, then all right, yeah, break the team up, but don't break the team before you have a chance to lose. Like that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And I guess I understand them wanting to get ahead of the curve on the rebuild, but it's like as long as you have MJ there, you're not rebuilding, you're competing for a championship. He's not going to ever be a part of a rebuild at that point in his career. Like he was too old, had gone through too much, had done too much as a player to be like, I'm gonna stay around for the rebuild. I thought I've heard the story of Tracy McGrady saying he almost got traded for Scottie Pippen that offseason. Obviously, didn't end up happening. I think partly because MJ wouldn't have gone for it. He probably wouldn't have played. But at least then, I guess the Bulls would have had a better piece for their rebuild once he did retire. But yeah, so then that's kind of that whole mess, you could say, is where The Last Dance came from, because he told Phil Jackson this was his last year, no matter what happened. He literally said he could go 82-0 and it wouldn't matter. He was not going to be in the coach next year, which again, nuts. Again, if you go 82-0, like what? Like it's crazy that Phil Jackson had won 5 championships up until that point. I understand that he got his start and got the chance to be a head coach because of Krause, but the fact that you could do all that and then by the end be like, I'm so over you being involved with this team that it doesn't matter what you do, you're gone next season. And then obviously he won the championship and he was gone. So at least he held true to his word, but that's kind of nuts. The fact that a GM would be that hell bent on wanting to start over and do things his way. And then obviously you see the Bulls have been trying to recapture that success ever since, and it hasn't really worked out. So maybe you shouldn't have gone that far with it. But hey, you live and you learn, I guess, maybe. I don't know. But also, I guess the other one of the other big takeaways I got from the first part was just how much, I guess just how soon, or not even just the first part, also, we'll talk about this in the second part too, just how soon people realized how good Jordan was. Because I think when we were talking about him being on campus, and he's talking to Roy Williams about how no one's ever going to outwork him, and he's talking about practicing, or James Worthy was telling a story about practicing where he was like, they're through, they worked out 2.5 hours, worked up a nice sweat, and Jordan comes in, he wants to play extra one-on-one, and he realized that he was better than him at the beginning, and that lasted for all of 2 weeks, and then like as a freshman, Jordan was clearly the best player on that team, supposedly. Again, I haven't watched, so I may be wrong about that, but that's these are what James Worthy said. He said he knew he was better than him for all of 2 weeks, and by that point, then Jordan was superior. And again, James Worthy had been there for a little while, and Jordan was a freshman, and obviously you see the kind of career he had at UNC and what that led to. So it's just crazy, just how quickly people realized that this guy was much better than they were or would be. I think in the second part, they said that you could argue he was better at his job than anybody's been at anything ever, honestly. And even with that said, I think the guy who was in charge of making the pick to get Jordan still said that he would have taken Hakeem number 1. Which is another funny part of the thing to me, was that even with all that being said, everything we know about Jordan, everything he's done, everything he did, everything people knew about him. And even, like, as he came in by the third game as a rookie year, they knew that he was, all right, we didn't screw this up. Like, it was plain and obvious. And yet, even with that, people still, you could still argue that Hakeem was the right pick at number 1 overall in that same draft. That's just, again, this just shows how good these great Hall of Fame level players are, that even when you compare them to Michael Jordan in the same draft class, you're just like, no, Houston, it worked out for them. Like, could they have had Michael Jordan? Sure, but, like, they had Hakeem, one of the best centers of all time, got 2 championships out of it. And no, there's no real complaints. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different things you could touch on with this documentary. So I don't want to go on too long before I get into the next segment. But yeah, so after this break, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about more of the documentary, more of part 2, the Scottie Pippen part, and then also kind of preview what I think we could get into in the 3rd and 4th episode airing next Sunday. So we'll talk about all that right after this break, so stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, I think I touched on this a little bit in the second episode, but I know it was in the first episode too. I didn't get to touch on it in the last segment, but I mean, again, you kind of realized how big of a deal Jordan was by, like, Dream Team time, like when again people were asking for autographs and in like at the end of games and stuff. So it's not surprising that by the end of their run, they were still like he and the Bulls as a whole were still like worldwide phenomenons. But it was just funny to see that the couple of instances where, I guess when they were in Paris, the one, I forget, it was after one of the games, the one guy asked for his wrist or like his armband as they were like dapping each other up after the game. That was fun. And also the one guy, I guess he was trying to help him get set up for an interview or whatever, and like in the middle of that, like while this guy was like on the clock working, doing whatever his job is, he like literally he literally asked for an autograph right there, and then MJ looks at like I guess his boss or whatever, and the boss is like, all right, like come on, we can't be doing that here. But like just a look he gave to him, like really, these are the kind of people you hire, like guys that would like be unprofessional and ask for autographs in the middle of the job. So that was just funny. But yeah, that's another thing for, I guess this is more so for people of my age that obviously would have missed Jordan's run. Even there's a good amount of people that were only kind of remember the second run, don't even remember the first run. But again, people my age, we missed all of that because we were barely alive at the point where MJ was at his peak. Even so, again, everything we know is from YouTube or from stories or from documentaries, stuff like this. We didn't live it, so it's obviously a different experience of having lived it and now reliving it, as opposed to like basically living a lot of stuff for the first time because you don't really have any idea what happened. But it's just interesting to see again, even at that point in '98 where they had done so much, and I guess they were, I mean, maybe not Jordan, but like you could argue most of them were still past their prime, just how big of a deal it was. Anywhere they went, they were always going to steal the show. But yes, that was funny. But the second part featured or focused more on Scottie Pippen. And one thing I will say, and it is a shame, is that they were definitely doing Scottie dirty for most of his Bulls career, especially at the end. Because I know, obviously, like we were talking about the last segment there, Jerry Krause was doing Phil Jackson dirty because for everything he had done. The fact that he couldn't let him leave on his own terms is kind of nuts. Even if he chose to leave after the 97-98 season, all right, that's fine. That's his prerogative. Can't make judgment, but just be like, again, you're done. Like, I'm gonna let you coach, but you're done after this. It's kind of nuts, and I mean, that's how I imagine Scottie felt. That's the reason why he said he put off getting the surgery, which again delayed him returning to the beginning of the 97-98 season because he didn't want to mess the summer up, especially for a team and an organization he felt was not doing right by him. Because as they showed in the doc, I mean, Scottie Pippen was like first and second, I should say, in many, many, many Bulls statistical categories, like from like the team standpoint. Like he was like, obviously he was the second best player. As I forget who in the doc said it, but probably the best number 2 of all time, you could say, because he's a guy that even when Jordan was gone for those 2 years, I guess for the year and 18 months, he said hiatus, as he said. For the year, they still made it to the playoffs, still went deep into the playoffs. I know they lost to the Knicks. Yeah, I think they lost to the Knicks. I forget if it was in the conference semis or conference finals, but they still, like I said, and that was his prime, so it makes sense as to why he would have been able to do that. Later on in his career, there's no chance he would have been able to do that. But in his prime, you could see that, like, all right, he had a chance to have his own team. Did they win a championship? No. But it's not like they just completely folded up. Because you could see some teams, they lose their star players, they just kind of like fold up and wither away and don't really do anything. Like, Scottie was able to get them at least to still be relevant, which in its own is still pretty cool. But to go along with that, the compensation was not there, and understandably so, that was a big issue for him. I mean, that 97-98 season, the salary cap hits, or I guess the salaries were as follows: Jordan, $33 million, makes sense. No one can really argue with that. Tony Kukoc, $4.5 million, great 6-man, get it. Ron Harper, $4.5. All right, Dennis Rodman, $4.5. Okay, so you're like, where's Scottie? We'll get to that in a second. Luke Longley, $3.1 million. Yeah, whatever. And then Scottie Pippen down here at 6th at less than $3 million. That was a salary for the last year. Less than $3 million. And it seemed like, I think someone, I'll look up, I gotta find the tweet that was pointed this out. But yeah, okay, so according to Spot Check, which kind of is the website that keeps track of a lot of the salary cap stuff, Scottie Pippen earned $22.2 million in his first 11 years with the Bulls. And a whopping average of $2 million a year, which even back then is bad money. I think they said that he was, in that year, was the 122nd highest paid player in the league, and if you did that right now, the person that's the 122nd is Andre Robertson, who hasn't played a game in, I think, in 2 years. And he's getting paid $10 million. So even being 122, again, obviously money is greater now than it was then because of the TV deals and all that stuff. But still, 122nd ranked player right now was a guy who's not even playing. And Scottie Pippen was the second best player on a 2-time defending champ going for a three-peat. They didn't end up winning the three-peat, obviously. Again, he had his issues. As well, I imagine we'll see. He was kind of laboring there at the end to even get to even help them get to that end point with different injuries. But yeah, just that's how does that make any sense? Like, how are there four other guys other than MJ? MJ being the highest paid, cool, can't argue with that. But how are there 4 guys higher than him in terms of salary on the Bulls, based on everything that Scottie Pippen has done for the Bulls over the course of his career, which is obviously take a lot of less money. I mean, he was out there taking those Dirk deals when Dirk was just trying to. They somehow convinced Dirk to take less money because they were going to go out and spend money on big free agent guys, and the biggest guy they were going to get, I think, was DeAndre Jordan or like Dwight Howard at one point. I know they had DeAndre until he like did the whole back out thing. They like locked him in his house. That was a funny night on Twitter. If you know, you know. But yeah, so like he was taking less money for that or to strike out on other guys. I mean, he sounds like a rapper signed into like a bad record deal, or like not as a rapper, but artist signed into a bad record deal. Like if you look at all those '90s groups, like the TLCs, the New Editions, anybody that was dealing with L.A. Reid or whatever, you saw the way their checks were looking. They were looking a little shaky, and then that's basically what Scottie Pippen was going through. Especially seeing as the next 5 years, that's why I said he earned over $77 million with the Rockets and the Blazers. So again, he makes $22 million over 11 years with the Bulls franchise. He's given. Again, was Jordan the driving force? Yes, but did Jordan win anything without Scottie? No. And as we saw in the documentary, they were struggling early in the season without Scottie. And I mean, could they have gotten to figure it out? Yeah, but they were struggling without him. So it's not like Jordan just did everything by himself. But yeah, so all that, and what does that get you? Nothing. Just another example as to why egos broke this team up. I mean, there was the clip there at the end. We didn't really hear or see much of it, but just Scottie Pippen on the bus, I thought it was going off on Jerry Krause, which, again, understandably so. If I feel like I've been getting mistreated for years, being cast aside, being underpaid, underappreciated, at some point it's all going to blow up. And eventually it all blew up. So I think with every episode we're going to see why this team did not last past the season, because it's a credit to them, the fact they were even able to get through this and win a title. Because a lot of teams would have been too much to deal with and would have taken them down. The fact they were able to get through this and end up winning the title is a much credit to them and their greatness. Because, like I said, this kind of stuff, just one of these things would have taken a lot of teams down. If you take out the Scottie stuff or the Robin stuff they're going to talk about, or just any other miscellaneous thing, not miscellaneous, but any other thing they're going to get to throughout the rest of the documentary, just talk about the Phil Jackson thing. The uncertainty, and then him coming back, and then this being his last dance and all that stuff. That would have been enough to kind of mess with the chemistry and camaraderie within the team, just knowing that this was it. Because either you can rise to the occasion or you can crumble under that pressure. You don't really know until it happens. But yeah, they were doing Scottie dirty. I feel bad for him. I really do. He didn't deserve that. But yeah, so the other thing that this doc had was obviously his MJ's big playoff performance against the Celtics, which shocking that they're his team, because I guess he got hurt with the foot injury. Not I guess that's what happened, but his team made the playoffs at 30-52. That's absurd. Even I don't know what era. It doesn't matter what era of sport you are. A team that 400-500 making the playoffs is always shocking. And even with that, goes out first two games, goes up against the Celtics team, who up until that point had an argument to be the greatest team of all time. At the very least, obviously, the Bulls passed their record and the Warriors, and you have other teams that have come through since then. But up until that point, you could argue they were the best team ever assembled. 4 Hall of Famers, great role players, all that stuff. And second year Jordan, I believe, second, third, but I think it was second year, drops 49 in Game 1 and 63 in Game 2, still a playoff record for points. And again, this is all on twos. They're not really shooting. Maybe like Larry Bird. Some people were shooting threes, but he's not shooting threes. These are all mid-range drives to the rim, post-ups, turnarounds, all within the arc. All within the arc. He scored 63 points. I mean, 18 free throws, but again, 63 points. Unheard of. No one could score 63 points on 41 shots in today's game on just twos. Just because no one shoots twos that much anymore. It's like that's just not how the analytics have told people to run their offense. So that makes it even more impressive. And then And then to go along with that, you had that's the fortunate and unfortunate part about this doc, is that since it's uncensored, at least if you watch on ESPN, there's going to be a lot of great quotes, but great quotes you can't really repeat most other places. But I know he had the great quote about when they were trying to tell him, like, oh, if you had just trying to, they were deciphering him on playing on the foot, obviously, to try to play against the Celtics in the playoffs, and they were having the thing like, oh, if you have 9 aspirin and that'll work and one might kill you, would you take the aspirin? He's like, it depends on how bad the headache is. Obviously, he used more colorful language than that, which makes it the quote better. But we're going to get a lot of those good quotes throughout, and we got a lot of them throughout the first 2 weeks. So I would keep track of those. That's in your mind. But just the last thing I want to touch on was the fact that those 2 games in Boston, 49-63. And I guess even after that, and like once you get through and you listen to Larry Bird, you listen to Magic Johnson during that time, or even now, talk about MJ and realizing that his second year, third year in the league, and these guys are, again, in their primes. Larry Bird in '86 just put together one of the best seasons for a team ever. And Magic's won multiple finals at this point. They're going back and forth competing. And they both acknowledge that MJ was the best player in the league by far, no point blank period. Again, it's just in tribute to his greatness, which is, again, I guess the point of this documentary. For people like me, because obviously a lot of people like to have like LeBron, MJ debates, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care about that. I'm not really that big. I'm not a stan for either one of them, so it is what it is. Like, you could argue different things for different reasons or whatever, but it's just, again, it's just crazy just to see how his peers talk about him both now and then. Just like, even then they knew he was different from everybody super early. Like, normally most people don't get that type of credit. You say that about a guy maybe his 3rd, 4th, 5th season in the league. You might be like, all right, yeah, he's the best player. This guy was in his 2nd year, and the 2 faces of the league were both acknowledging, yeah, he's far better than anyone in the league, but like not even close. Like, it doesn't even matter. To pick a name, he's better than them. He's more talented than them. And again, it's crazy to think about just how good this guy was at what he did. Like I said in the last segment. And I think it was this part where they said that like he was better at his job than maybe anybody's been at their job at anything in life. And I mean, I don't know, because I don't know every person that's ever existed, so it's hard for me to say, but if you want to make that argument, I'm not going to stop you. Let's put it that way. That's just how good this guy was. So yeah, part 3 and 4 next. Rodman, Bad Boys. Obviously, going to talk about that. Should be a lot of Isaiah's stuff in there. They don't like each other. That'll be fun to listen to. For me, because I like beef and I like tension. So that'll just be fun. The quotes back and forth between those two, because obviously we know they have issues, or they've had issues for a while. Ever since the whole Dream Team thing. And then you got the Rodman part, where Rodman's kind of a character in and of himself. So anything he says has a chance to be kind of crazy and memorable. And just like I said, just hearing MJ talk about him and describe him, along with other people, I don't know who else they're going to have from the team talk about him during that time, but it'll just be memorable and funny to listen to. So I think that those will provide for some interesting bits. Obviously, we know a lot about the Bad Boys and the Jordan era, and we know a good amount about Rodman, but this whole thing is to give us even more depth and even more knowledge to what we thought we already knew. And I think there's going to be a lot more to learn about Dennis Rodman than we already knew, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, so that should be fun. If you missed it, I'm sure you can find it like somewhere on demand, or like on ESPN or ESPN Plus, whatever you would have watched this. I imagine you can find it there. So I would recommend you watching it just so you're all caught up before next week. Same time, same place, 9 a.m. Sunday night. Don't miss it. I wouldn't miss it. If you're a sports fan, you probably didn't miss it, but you never know. Life, you're busy, whatever. Don't judge. But yeah, so just get caught up so then you can. I don't want to say spoiler alert because like it's live, so we all knew. But like, if you haven't watched it yet, don't listen to this because I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff that happens. But if you have, then come here. You can hear me discuss it, and you can add in things that I may have forgot to touch on. Because again, there's a lot to talk about with this documentary, so I can't touch on everything. Yes, after this next break, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss Peyton Manning, who had some advice for the soon-to-be number one overall pick. So we'll talk about the advice he gave and just kind of how I think he's going to acclimate himself within the league whenever he gets it, because we don't know when football's going to be played this year, or even if it will be played at all. Yeah, sad times. But yeah, we'll talk about all that right after this break, so stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So Peyton Manning had some advice for soon-to-be, we think, assuming the Bengals don't do anything crazy, number one pick, Joe Burrow, and just like what to expect during his rookie year. Because obviously, like many top draft picks, they've had a lot of success in their life, whether it's at the Pop Warner level, or just football specifically, like Pop Warner level, high school, college. Like, these guys don't get to go number one without some level of success, whether that's personal success or team success. It doesn't really matter. They've had some level of success majority of the time. And obviously, as we've discussed on this, or I've discussed on this podcast, Joe Burrow is coming off of arguably the greatest season a quarterback has ever had in terms of stats and championships and big game performances, all that stuff. It's hard to argue that very many people have had a better season than him individually. And obviously, again, before he got to LSU, he was at Ohio State, which is obviously known for winning. I believe he was a big winner in high school, or at least one in high school. I don't know about big winner, because that would imply like 3 or 4 championships. I don't know if he was doing all that, but I believe he claims that he's always been a winner at every level. So that was kind of Peyton Manning's point, that this could be a little bit of a culture shock for him to a degree. I don't know if culture shock's the right word. Just a general shock for him to a degree. So yeah, Peyton Manning told him, because Joe Burrow called him up to get some advice, and the biggest thing that he told him was that you're going to take lumps in the rookie year, but those rough times can help propel you to success in your later years. Manning, who was the number one overall pick of the Colts in 1998, said Sunday on SportsCenter that Burrow recently called him for advice on being a rookie quarterback. Burrow, who won the Heisman national title last season with LSU, attended Manning's passing academy last summer. He called about different things that he called me about some things that I tried to do as a rookie that maybe he can apply to his NFL career. Manning said, looks like he's going to the Bengals. I told him, look, Joe, if you're the first pick in the NFL draft, you're going to a team that has earned the first pick in the NFL draft. There are going to be some holes there. There is a reason the Colts were picking number one that year. There's a reason the Bengals are picking number one this year, which, again, very true. It's not like the NBA where it's like a lottery and like maybe like the Pelicans, for example. They weren't necessarily a terrible team, but due to some luck and some ping pong balls, they got to number one. Same way with the Lakers. They weren't a bad team either. They ended up with the 4th pick. I mean, did they not make... I mean, they only missed the playoffs because LeBron got hurt, and then they were able to parlay that into Anthony Davis and other things. So, worked out for them. And then obviously, again, the Pelicans, who didn't make the playoffs, but weren't as bad as the number one pick would suggest. We're able to get probably that into Zion and then not easily, but be able to replace a guy like Anthony Davis. And so on and so forth. So it's not like that, where NFL is just like, it's strictly by record. Obviously, as most of you guys know. But if you didn't, it's strictly by record. So the team with the worst record, based on unless there's and if there's a tie, then you go through whatever sort of tie breaks you need to have. But it's worst record, then second worst, and it goes all the way down until then obviously then you're done with that. Then you get the playoff teams, and it's by like who gets knocked out and has the best record and some other things. But generally speaking, the team with the number one pick is the worst, or was the worst team in the league the year before. So with that being said, that was kind of to Manny's point. They earned that record. They weren't like gifted that pick. Like they earned that pick by being as bad as they were. No other way to really phrase it, in my opinion. They were just, the Bengals weren't a good team last year. Hence why they have the number one pick. But with that, I mean, obviously they'll have AJ Green back, you think, this year. So that helps their offense a little bit, but they still have holes on the defense, all levels. Still could probably use another lineman or two, potentially. Just again, because it's not like their line was great last year. So you want to keep your rookie quarterback upright, because taking a lot of sacks early in his career could be damaging further down his career. He might get skittish in the pocket, see ghosts, if you will. Shout out Sam Darnold. So yeah, you don't want that. So you want to try to get him as much help as you can. But again, when you have the number one pick, there's only so much you can do to change a team overnight. And maybe it's like with some instances, young quarterbacks can come in and be that drastic change for the franchise. Maybe that's all they were needed. I don't think the Bengals were a quarterback away from being at least competitive last year. I don't want to say contenders, because you still got the Ravens and Browns if they ever get their stuff together, and then the Steelers, who weren't bad last year, and they had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph out there, who aren't anywhere close to the level Big Ben is. So if Big Ben's even 75% of what he was, that's better than what they had at quarterback last year, and they won, 7-8 games last year with that defense. They could be right here. The Bengals are in a tough spot. They're not just going to, I don't think, they're not just going to immediately insert Joe Burrow, boom, 8-9-1 season. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe it will. Who knows? No one thought Joe Burrow was going to go number one at this time last year, so it wouldn't shock me if he's out there proving people wrong. But like I said, at this point in time, I'd be hard pressed to believe that just inserting Joe Burrow onto the Bengals is going to make all the difference in the world. But we shall see soon enough, hopefully, assuming there's a season. But yeah, so Manning also pointed out that he lost more games in his rookie year than he had in high school and college combined, but it was a valuable learning experience for him. Then Colts coach Jim Moore never took me out. Manning said, I learned some things in the fourth quarter of those blowouts about what it took to be an NFL quarterback. The next year we went from 3-13 to 13-3. That wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have hung in there and learned the ropes as a rookie, even though we took some bumps and bruises. So that's what I tried to encourage Joe and all the other rookie quarterbacks, that your rookie year is not going to be the same as your senior year in college or junior year if you come out early. But if you learn how fast defensive backs are, how soon you can get rid of the ball, understand defenses, you can become a better player and really get going the year or two after that. So yeah, after Manning's rookie year, he had just one more season in his career where he was a starting quarterback. The team had a losing record. He went to Super Bowls, third all-time in passing and touchdowns, multiple MVPs. So, again, a bad start does not necessarily equal a bad end. So yeah, I guess that's just a point that Peyton was trying to get across to Burrow, is that, look, not everything's going to be great, but if it is great, cool, that works. And if it's not great, cool, you can learn from that and help your team get better. As we've seen the past couple of years, a lot of second-year guys, whether they played a lot the year before or not, have had great success. I mean, Lamar Jackson just won the MVP his second year. Patrick Mahomes won the MVP his second year. Carson Wentz was going to win the MVP second year if he doesn't get hurt. So again, and then, I mean, this next year, people think, especially if DeAndre Hopkins is still who we know he is, Kyler Murray could make that second-year leap. Daniel Jones, if he gets a little bit better line, because he wasn't bad last year either. Maybe he can make that leap. There's a bunch of different guys out there right now that can make that second-year leap. People thought it could have been Sam Darnold, but again, the whole Miles situation kind of ruined that. But yeah, so I think that's just important for Joe Burrow to know and realize that things aren't going to always go great when you first enter a bad team. And I think if he accepts that and he understands that, then he'll be better off. Because, I mean, again, some people handle losing better than others. Not to say that you should be a good loser, because that's, again, most greats aren't good losers. But you need to understand that comes with the territory, especially as a rookie. Now, if we're in year 4 and that's happening, all right, that's a completely different story. But your first year in the league, there's no reason to believe that you're just going to come in and completely take the league by storm. Now, maybe I'm not saying that shouldn't be the goal. I'm not saying that you shouldn't want to do that. I'm just saying don't expect that and don't be like outwardly upset and taking it, lashing out on media or doing whatever if that is what happens. I think that's what the biggest thing is. Like I said, if you're a guy that hasn't really lost that much in high school or in college, then it's just one of those things where you don't really know how you're going to react. I'm pretty sure. I think Kyler Murray lost as a starter, obviously, because I know Oklahoma didn't go undefeated every year. But I think he lost his first loss, whenever it was last season. It was last season at Oklahoma. Was like because I don't think he lost, or maybe he lost like once or twice in high school. So I know he took it kind of hard when they lost at Oklahoma the one game. That's the thing, is that like you don't. And this year, the team wasn't that great, but I mean they took their lumps. They had the losses here and there, but he was able to keep things cool, calm, and collected, get better as the year went on. So yeah, it's just like he's a guy that is a good example of he didn't lose most of his athletic career. But then he got to the league. He was on a team that was picking number 1 for a reason, and not that he wasn't a complete disaster his first year, but he didn't win every game. But he was able to stick through that. Didn't cause a big fuss. Wasn't a big headache in the locker room, from what it sounds like. Obviously, I don't follow the Arizona Cardinals, but from what I hear, it wasn't like a big issue. And he'll probably be better off for it this coming season. Just learning from all the different things he had to go through last season, and obviously like the growing pains, different things. So I think that's the biggest thing for young quarterbacks, is that they need to go through that. You can't just get out there, and that's why I guess it's good for Burrow to be with, even though Zach Taylor's inexperienced, he's still only a second year as a coach. You're not worried about getting fired or him getting fired. That's kind of could be the worry, is that when you have like a Washington situation where Jay Gruden's kind of on his last legs trying to save his job, he's not going to be willing to put the young guy in, whether he's ready or not. I mean, obviously there were reports that Haskins wasn't ready, and again, maybe he wasn't ready at first, but he obviously got better as the year went on. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of instances where people aren't willing to take those chances due to the fact that they know their job's on the line. If you have a coach like Cliff Kingsbury, going back to the Kyler Murray example, it was his first year as a head coach, so you know he's not getting fired after the first year, unless things were a complete and utter disaster, which they weren't. So he wasn't going to get fired, so you can risk keeping your guy in there through the ups and the downs. That's the biggest thing for these quarterbacks, and that's why it's important to have a person or a franchise in place that believes in you, because not everything's going to be beautiful in the beginning. It's going to take some time. Obviously, another point he made is that he still has the record for interceptions thrown as a rookie, and he was completely fine if Joe Burrow broke that. I don't think Joe Burrow will, but you never know. But yeah, he threw 28 interceptions as a rookie. Peyton Manning did. Okay, and turned out fine for him. It's just the things you learn and grow with and understand better from making mistakes. That's the thing about trying to be successful. You can't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid to make mistakes, because actually those mistakes or those failures can prove as learning lessons in terms of, all right, this works, this doesn't work, I can try this in this scenario, I can try this in that scenario, stuff like that helps you get up to speed quicker, in my personal opinion. And allows you to get up to speed quicker because you understand what works and what doesn't. But if you start off the season 0-4 and the coach just yanks you out, you're not going to learn through that. You got to be able to work through adversity. You got to be able to handle guys in the locker room. How do you handle yourself when your team's going well? How do you handle yourself when your team's doing poorly? How do you handle the other people in the locker room when things aren't going right? Like, you need to be able to work through that, and I think that's the good thing. Joe Burrow should be able to work through that. And whatever happens next year happens. Doesn't really, not to say it doesn't really matter, but if it's good, great. If it's bad, okay, it's fine. He'll be fine. I think that's the biggest thing for him, is just make sure you understand that if things don't go right, that's not the end of the world. And if he stays true to that, then Joe Burrow will probably be fine as long as the Bengals do everything around him right. Because again, the quarterback can elevate a team, but if the pieces around him aren't that good, especially in a sport like football, there's only so much just the quarterback can do. If he's good but the defense is terrible, you're not going to win that many games. If he's good but the offensive line is bad, you're not going to win that many games. There's a lot of other aspects to the game than just quarterback play. But at the very least, if he just makes sure he's doing his job and he's learning and he's doing the things he needs to do, then he's setting himself up for success for the future. Speaking of the future, the WNBA draft took place on Friday. I know not everybody's big WNBA fans, but the number one pick could very well be what helps the WNBA reach the heights it wants to be at in the future, because she could be the star that the league has been looking for. Not that there aren't great players now, but there's not that person that you need to tune in to watch, and she very well may be that person. We'll talk about who I'm talking about and how I think she can help and how she can help raise the league in terms to where it's more popular, more appointment watching. Obviously, will bring in more money, all that fun stuff that everybody wants. So we'll talk about all that for after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Podcast Network. So, if you weren't, I'm not going to say if you weren't watching, because I wasn't watching either, but if you weren't staying updated with what was going on in the WNBA draft, a nice little tribute they paid to Gigi and her two other teammates that perished in the helicopter crash earlier this year, then you also probably would have missed the fact that Sabrina Ionescu, I believe is how you pronounce it, the star player from Oregon, went number 1 overall to the New York Liberty. Now, was that a surprise? No, not really. But I believe that she could very well be the player that could potentially take the WNBA to the heights that it wants to reach. Now, with every generation of sports, or just the major sports leagues, there has been a person or persons pivotal to growing the brand, growing the league, and taking it to that next level. I mean, going back to the NBA, you've had, obviously, post Bill Russell, Jerry West, all those guys. You had Magic and Bird. They kind of helped revitalize the league, obviously, after the battles in college, and they came to the league. Obviously, we're on different coasts. We're on the two probably still to this day the two biggest franchises in the sport, and that allowed for popularity, allowed for people to tune in, viewers to kind of go up, the money coming in to go up, all that fun stuff. And obviously post that was the Jordan era, which again which made it almost more global, because obviously at that point basketball was still kind of centralized to America, but the Jordan and the Bulls and the Dream Team, and also kind of helped the game become more global, and also they were able to expand upon that. And this last era, though you could mix in a lot of different people, the social media era has been dominated by guys like LeBron, and then after him, even though LeBron's still going on, Steph. And then they have allowed through social media now to get the league even bigger than it was, even what Jordan could do. And again, he's arguably the greatest player of all time, depending on who you ask. But yeah, even he was not able to get the league necessary to reach the heights overseas, and just popularity-wise and viewership-wise and fan-wise that LeBron and then now Steph has been able to take it to. And then, like I said, you go back to football. I don't know. I guess football is more so teams, I guess I would say, because not really one player that I'm like, oh, he kind of helped change the game per se. But obviously, the great teams helped. The Patriots dynasty helped. I guess the football is a little bit different, but until again, there's so many different. There aren't really dynasties anymore. It's just like this team wins one year, then this team wins the next year, then this team wins, and that team wins. Though I could argue, guys like Mahomes, who are just like human highlight reels, especially in the day and age where everybody just cares about quick things. Not everybody's watching all the games. While you have Red Zone, you just want to tune in to see the good parts where the teams score, or there's turnovers and stuff. Then you don't always care to watch full games of teams that you're not invested in. I think Mahomes can, and those highlights and those like quick things that you can post on social media, and that'll get a lot of viewership, a lot of impressions, a lot of buzz, a lot of engagements. Those are the kind of things you're looking for, and that's why everything Mahomes does gets posted. That's why everything Steph does gets posted. That's why everything LeBron does and his family does gets posted, because you know they're going to get eyeballs, they're going to get impressions, they're going to get engagement. So that's in this day and age is kind of what you want. So I say all that to say that Sabrina Ionescu could be that for the WNBA. I know at my last job we had a lot of different discussions about what you would do to try to improve the WNBA, how you could change it. And a lot of people say like, oh, lower the rim so that more people can dunk. Fair. I don't know if that's necessarily going to change anything per se, because obviously now more people will be able to dunk. But again, the big thing about the era we now is just like the moments. And obviously, I guess dunking will create more moments, but it's like dunks themselves aren't what makes the NBA so popular. It's the fact that people get dunked on. It's like people do the fancy dunks between the legs, 360s in game, all stuff that happens. The crossovers, the alley oops, the people getting dropped, people getting shook, step back threes, all like that kind of stuff is why people are so tuned in, because they can just, like I said, the moments get people to want to tune in and watch certain players and certain teams, different things like that. And a person like this, in Sabrina, who was a star in college, who increased attendance at Oregon, who's not necessarily known as especially not in women's basketball, not necessarily known as a powerhouse university, helped in, this is from Joe J. Hoyt, Twitter account. There's a chart from the Wall Street Journal that showed just how transformative Sabrina was at Oregon. Home attendance at Oregon women's basketball games has skyrocketed since the year before Sabrina Ionescu's arrival, because in 2016 it was around 2,000 per game. 2017 it went up a little bit. 2018 it was at 400. By 2019 it was up 4,000. 2019 it was up near 8,000, and obviously for last year they had over 10,000 people. Because again, that's what a star can do. It gets people interested, it gets people invested, it gets people want to, because you don't want to miss it. When a person over the course of their career has 20,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 1,000 assists, has, 26 triple-doubles or something like that. You never know when that can happen on any given night. So you're like, all right, I don't want to miss it. And then now I'm like, I gotta. And honestly, not maybe a little bit more college basketball, but if it's not UConn, not everybody was tuned in, especially not early on. Obviously, by the end, everything she did was getting the proper amount of attention, or maybe not the proper amount of attention. Probably should have gotten more attention. Kind of imagine there's a lot of people out there that don't know of all her accolades just because they don't follow women's sports. And even if you don't follow women's sports, not that I would not say I'm a heavy women's sports person, but I just follow sports and I follow greatness, and she's great. So that's why I'm tuned in. But yeah, so when you have a player like that can do that, especially in the market like New York, I think that's going to be that's probably the biggest thing, is that in New York are just looking for anybody that's good at anything, honestly. Doesn't matter for how long, doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. I mean, look at literally Lynn Sanity, I don't think could exist in any place other than New York. Just because of the buzz it created. Like, again, he could have been great. He could have had a hot moment in different states. He could have had it in Utah. He could have had it in Dallas. He could have had it in Charlotte. He could have had it in where else? He could have had it in Milwaukee. But doesn't get the national buzz if it's not in New York, if it's not in LA, if it's not in maybe Boston. I think, but you can probably get some in Boston too. But the New York fan base is what kind of propelled Linsanity into what it was, in my opinion. Because again, a lot of people can play really good for a month, a couple months. It's not anything new. But he was like a worldwide phenomenon for that short period of time. Now, obviously, it was very short-lived, but I don't think that happens in other places. Just because, again, New York fans are so diehard about anybody that's good. If you're good there, you are revered forever. I know a while ago I made the argument for Eli Manning being in the Hall of Fame, and I think he'll probably end up getting in. Not a first ballot guy, but he'll probably end up getting in. But there are New York fans that will argue forever about Eli Manning's greatness just because he won 2 Super Bowls, even though everything else about him says average quarterback. Just 2 Super Bowls. Boom, that's all you need in New York. Like I'm saying, if you're good and you win, you're set, and you can be huge. Jeremy Lin was huge for that short period of time. Like, she could be that. Like, she doesn't. I don't know if she could or would be that if she's in a different city. Because again, New York, obviously they have like Kyrie and KD now. So once they get back, they'll probably be fine. But like they're still looking for their next guy. They haven't had one since like peak Mel, and even before then, it's been kind of hit or miss with their stars. So they're still kind of looking for that buzz. New York's kind of looking for that basketball person that they could claim as their own. I mean, Kyrie's kind of their own, but like again, he did have all his success in Cleveland, and it's in Brooklyn, so that's not really that big. And KD, he's technically theirs now, but again, he had his success in other places, so he's kind of just like adding to it here. But again, if he wins one here, he'll be remembered in New York forever. So that's kind of thing is when you have a player that has the star potential that she has in a market this big, this could exactly be the type of thing that the league needs. And that's like I was talking about before with the ways that I can try to improve the league. I think the biggest thing for them is that you don't have anybody that you love to watch or that you love to hate. And I think that's the biggest thing in a lot of other sports. You have the team that you love. Like I know the football is always like the one like culture team. Like whether it was like the Ravens this year or whether it's like the Panthers in the years past or the Eagles when they were dancing all over everybody or the Falcons or whoever. You have the people that people just are tuned in to watch because they're great and they're having a good time and everything's fun. And you have people that you hate to watch, like the Patriots. Everybody was tuned into Super Bowls to watch them lose or tuned into players to watch them lose. Didn't happen that often, but that's what they tuned in for. Same thing with the NBA. You're tuned in because you want to see, because you love LeBron, or you're tuned in because you hate LeBron. Or you're tuned in because you love James Harden, or you're tuned in because you hate James Harden. Same with Steph. You have guys that people love to watch, but at the same time you have people that people love to hate. And that those two sides can kind of come together and kind of bring that, and they'll bring the eyes that you want on your sport. because again, whether it's because you're hate watching or you're watching because it's just you want to watch your favorite player. As long as you're watching, that's all the leagues and commissioners and everything care about. So if she can be that person that's, whether I don't know if it's going to be necessarily hate watching, at least not in the beginning, unless she turns into a villain, which I mean is possible. Any couple words I know, Kobe had his lovers and he had his haters. Again, another reason why he was as big as he was, because not only was he successful, but he had people on both sides, and that duality is kind of what drives people to sports. Is that either you love something or you hate something. Either way, you're going to watch it. And I think that's the issue with the WNBA. There's no one that you're invested in either that much, and you're not invested that much in watching, or you're not invested in that much seeing them fail. I think that's the two things you need in sports. You need the people that you love to watch, and like I said, people that you love to hate. So I think if she could be that person that people love to watch, because any given night she could do amazing things. And again, not that she's the only great player this, I'm going to be honest, with Mrs. last year, but you have her who was great, but again, she's just like, she was mainly a scorer. Same with Deladon, mainly a scorer. Maya Moore is mainly a scorer. Ionescu can do a little bit of everything. And I think that but the same thing, I guess, not that she's going to be Russell Westbrook with the dunks and stuff, but the triple-double thing was a very polarizing stat for him this MVP year, just because people thought it was devalued, people thought his teammates were helping him get it, blah, 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 whatever. Regardless, people were still tuned in to watch, and still, because they were invested in wanting to see it, and also so they could hate on it. That's why these sports are as big as they are, is because you have people that you love and the people that you hate, and I think that's probably why, the separate point, but it's probably why baseball's falling a little bit behind, because the only people that you care about with baseball is just like the people, your team in your region. You don't really care about watching any other team, because you're not that emotionally invested in them, and if you are that emotionally invested in them, seeing them either succeed or fail, they're usually around where you're from. Like, honestly, you're a Yankees fan, you're invested in seeing the Boston Red Sox fail, but that's still on the East Coast, and I'm invested in seeing maybe I guess they could have worked in their favor this year, the Houston Astros, that they would have been that team, that everyone's just invested in hoping they fail. But we would never know if that would have worked, or never know if that will work, because they won't be involved. But again, before this year, no one would have cared one way or the other. If the Houston Astros are great, if they stink, it doesn't really matter to most people. Now again, that would have been a big draw, is that their games will get a lot of viewership because you want to see them do badly. Again, that's the key part, is what you want to have people you can root for and who you can root against. I think Sabrina Ionescu, especially in a market like New York, could be that person that people want to root for. Again, not only just because of the relationship with Kobe and obviously what he meant and what he could, and what his messages and his conversations with her could, and what his memory could do to drive her to be great, but also just because she's great on the court and she can do so many different things. It's entertaining to watch. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. We don't know. Obviously, we don't even know when league will even start back up. But she could be that person that helps elevate. Obviously, it'll never be the NBA. It'll never be the NFL. But just get it a little bit bigger than it is now. I think that's kind of all you're really hoping for, just so that to grow it, obviously, because it's still in infancy relatively as a league. It's only been around for I think like 20 years or something like that. So it's still relatively new. I mean, the NBA in its first 20 years obviously wasn't like TV and stuff, but there wasn't like a huge thing. Same with the NFL. It takes time for these sports to get that cult following and that big time fan base. But again, you need those star players in order to get that, and she could be that. But I guess we'll see if she's able to do that. But yeah, I thought shout out to her. She's great. And yeah, we'll see if she can be that face of the WNBA that can, again, elevate it. She signed a deal with Nike, so she's a part of that family, and that'll obviously help her out, get her commercials, get relationships with different NBA players and stuff like that to get her more visibility, because again, not everybody watches college women's basketball, so there's a lot of people that don't even know she exists that are basketball fans, but they're mainly just like NBA or men's fans. Again, getting that viewership out there will get you more interested and be like, all right, let me check this girl out, and then bada bing, bada boom, now you got something going for you. So hopefully the WNBA capitalize on her being in a big market and parlay that into success for the league as a whole. But yeah, so as we all know, you guys are hearing this on Monday, which means it's officially draft week. So Yeah, a lot of trade rumors going on around about teams trading up, teams trading back, players being traded this week. So we'll touch on all of that and all the different rumors right after this break. So stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
NFL Draft. As you were hearing this on Monday, it is coming up in 3 days, which is good because it gives us something to look forward to. Unfortunately, after that, there won't be much else in the terms of new events coming up, so we won't have much else to go for a little while. Don't think about that. Just think about the good times, and that's the NFL Draft coming up this week. And with that being said, there have been a lot of people that have either recently resurfaced in trade rumors or have been on the trade block for a little while now. And you would think if they're going to get traded, it's going to be this week because, again, I feel like most teams aren't going to want to trade or wait around to have to trade for draft picks next year in order to get rid of these players. If they're not going to be a part of their team, you would think they would want to get the picks as soon as possible as opposed to having to wait a year. At least personally. I mean, granted, I guess if you trade them closer to when the season starts, then the draft picks next year make more sense. But you think the draft's coming up. If the guys are going to get traded, then they should be getting traded this week. I would assume. But with that, there are quite a few names who could be on that trade block. Starting, obviously, with the big one. Or I guess not the big one, but the one that's been talked about the most, Yannick Ngakoue, defensive end, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are clearly in rebuild mode. He seems like he doesn't want to be there. Doesn't seem like they want to pay him. So I know it's been rumored around for a while, him potentially getting traded. Because he's technically, I know they offered the franchise tag. He hasn't technically signed it, but once he signs it, then he'll be allowed to be traded. So if you ever see him sign it, then and anytime soon, then probably means he's getting traded. Not that long after. But yeah, he's been kind of, like I said, his name's been floated around for a while now. So you would think if the Jacksonville Jaguars are really intent on getting rid of him, which, I mean, they should be, because he doesn't want to be there anymore. And, I mean, there's nothing worse than a guy that doesn't want to be on with your team that can cause all kinds of chemistry and locker room issues. Plus, they've already traded Calais Campbell, they've already traded Nick Foles. There's another guy on the trade block who we will get to in a moment for that team. So yeah, it seems like I said, they're in complete rebuild mode. So it's like, all right, trade your most valuable asset at this point. Obviously, they've already traded Jalen Ramsey, you traded Dante Fowler. They've gotten rid of a lot of guys over the last few years. So at this point, he's probably their most, like I said, he's their hottest commodity. And it's like, all right, if you're not going to use him, you might as well get something out of him, for him. Because it doesn't seem like he's going to, I mean, whether or not, I assumed if it came down to it, he would play this year on the franchise tag. Whether or not he misses how many ever games is up to him. But I'd like to think he's not just going to sit out the whole year, though he might not have to, because who knows if there'll even be football this year. But yeah, with that being said, his name should be swirling around in more trade rumors, a little bit more ramped up to talks. I think the draft is coming very soon. And then also, like I said, his teammate, Leonard Fournette, just recently got put on the trade block. I think it was, what was this, Friday or Saturday? No, this was Saturday. It's Adam Schefter tweeted that the Jaguars have had trade discussions with other teams regarding running back Leonard Fournette. And sources tell ESPN Fournette is due $4.16 million in base salary in 2020. It's a situation that bears watching as this week's draft approaches. It makes sense. Though it's kind of funny this comes out right after he was campaigning for the Jaguars that they should go out and sign Cam, even though they already have Minshew. But I mean, Minshew's not bad, but I don't know if he wasn't good enough last year to be like, oh, he should just be the unquestioned starter. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like I said, he was good for a rookie, but it's not like he wasn't exceptional in the way in which, like I said, he could just hold this down on his own with no competition, in my opinion. Again, Jacksonville coaches and executives and staff may feel differently, but that's just my personal opinion on the topic. But yes, it was just the timing of it was kind of funny because he comes out in support of them signing Cam, and then now all of a sudden he's on the trade block. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, so yeah, like I said, he's another name that could be worth monitoring throughout this week leading up to draft to see if he is really on the move. Because especially if they've had discussions, then you think something could be coming soon. I don't know if the Jaguars are really going to try to recoup the same value on it, because I know they drafted him in the first round. I don't think they're going to get a first round pick for him at this point. But he's not a bad running back for a team that maybe could use a big back as a part of their rotation or their stable, if you will. He's a solid back, and obviously, though he's not like the greatest receiver ever, but he's gotten better. I feel like over the last couple of years, he's improved that aspect of his game, so not just a big back. So yeah, he could be useful for a couple of teams. Obviously, the big one, and that kind of has been floated around for a little bit. Obviously, it was floated around the trade deadline, and nothing happened with it. But it could end up floating around again if the Jets don't decide to sign him to an extension. That'd be Jamal Adams, the safety. I know Cowboys were a team that floated the idea of trading for him, like I said, around the trade deadline time. It didn't happen. But again, that doesn't mean that it can't happen this heading into the draft. I don't know how they feel about the people they could get or what their needs are. I don't know if they're necessarily a safety away, but letting Jeff Heath go and not really finding a replacement for him per se. Not that Jeff Heath was great, but obviously Jamal Adams, bring him in, takes their defense to another level. They let Byron Jones walk, so they've had Robert Quinn's gone. I mean, they brought in Allen Smith, but we don't know what's going to happen with him. He hasn't played in a while. So they've had a lot of subtractions on the defensive side of the ball. Still don't know. Sounds like Leighton Van Der Esch is going to play, but you never really know with the next situation. He could just be one hit away from being out for the year or being done for a career, so you can't really be too safe about that. So maybe, do they need a safety? Yes, but do they need to trade him? Do they need a safety that bad where they need to trade a first-round pick for him? And then also, again, give him money when they haven't even paid Dak yet? Probably not. So, I mean, a lot of teams could utilize the services or use the services of a guy, Jamal Adams, and do it all kind of safety. That's been great his first couple years in the league. Again, you have to pay him, but he would make a lot of defenses better if he were one of their starting safeties. So we'll see what happens with him. Then obviously we've seen, just on the non-player side of things, we've seen different reports about people trading up. We've seen the Eagles, or there was a rumor about the Eagles trading up to CeeDee Lamb. There's a rumor about the Broncos trading up. There's a rumor about the Browns wanting to trade back. So, I mean, those kind of trades don't necessarily need to happen before the draft. They can just, or it's not even just those. You also, like maybe like the Chargers or the Dolphins or somebody else might want to trade up for their pick of whoever, whether it's a quarterback or a different position. So yeah, so those trades probably won't go down until closer to draft day, if they don't, if they didn't happen before the draft at all. Because a lot of those trades, while they do happen before the draft, they don't necessarily need to happen before the draft. But yeah, so it seems like, at least this week, there could be a lot of movement. So that would be something definitely to keep your eyes out for, keep your ears out for, just because, again, as you get closer to the draft, people get more desperate, whether it's in terms of what they want or what they're willing to accept, and they're desperate as in it goes up, what they're willing to offer, or it could go down in terms of what they're willing to accept. You've been saying, like, I want a first-round pick for this guy, first-round pick. Cool. You know he doesn't want to be a part of your team anymore. We come to the draft time, the team's like, I'm not going to trade my first-round pick. All right, you might settle for a second and a third, or a second and a pick the year after. Those kind of things you never really know. So again, once they're held to the fire, some people fold, some people stand strong. So you never really know with these teams. Obviously, there's a lot of quote-unquote bad GMs in the league. So not everybody's, again, a master whiz with the trades that we've seen with what Bill O'Brien has offered for people and what he has traded other people for. So again, not everybody gets what you would think would be equal value for the pieces they're giving away, or the pieces they're trading for, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, there are a lot of people that not a lot of people, but I think there are GMs out there that may be willing to take less than what they should to get a player out of their hair. Mainly talking about the Jaguars here. I think they could end up trading guys in Fournette and Ngakoue for maybe less than what they would be quote-unquote worth, just because I don't see the point of just having the guys around just to have them around at this point. Neither one of them seems to... I mean, Fournette was kind of a new one, but I'm not that surprised. They traded basically everyone else from that was important to that 2017 team at this point is kind of gone, so it'd be weird to have him stick around of all people. And then, like I said, with Ngakoue, he's expressed that if they're not going to give him a big extension, he doesn't want to be there. And it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. So, might as well, like I said, part ways now instead of just holding out, because the trade value is only going to go down the longer you have them, in my opinion. But hey, we'll see. Like I said, there should be, I don't know about a lot of movement, but there should be a decent amount of movement, whether it's before the draft or during the draft, I think. Drafts are always so unpredictable, especially when a run starts happening. It doesn't really matter the position, but once a run starts happening, that's when you see people get nervous, when you see people start to trade up, that's when you see teams start to trade back, all that different things. Just because the people that they thought were available aren't available, or maybe the people that they didn't think were going to be available are available, so you do things accordingly. So yeah, I think the draft's going to be good regardless of if there's trades before or during, but again, there seems like there could be some movement before the draft even takes place on Thursday, so it's something that I would suggest you keep your eyes out for. So, like I said, if anything happens, we'll be here to talk about it, which hopefully something happens. I think something's going to happen, but don't know what it is, don't know who it is. Somebody will be moved, some draft picks will be moved, I think, before the draft, and obviously once the draft starts, we'll have more of that, especially in the first round. I think there could be quite a few trade-ups in the first round once we see how the draft board starts to fall, because you never really know exactly how it's going to fall before the draft. You have an idea, but you never know for certain. And then obviously once things happen, then that's when you get those trade-ups. You get people trading back, so like, the guys we all wanted are no longer here, so like we might as well trade back, get extra picks. Or if you have, like, if CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy and Ruggs are available still all at 13 or 14 or 15 or something, you could see teams in the 20s trading up because they're like, hey, we need a receiver. We didn't expect him to still be here. Might as well. Go after the same thing with like Tua. If Tua drops, you could see teams in the 20s be like, yeah, I think we can afford to take the risk on his hip. And they'll end up trading up. So you never, like I said, you never know. But keep your eyes out for the trades that could go down this week. And speaking of the draft, we're going to play a nice little game of Would You Rather right after this break. So I'll once we get back, I'll describe what it means, the rules of the game, kind of the way the match is going to work, all that fun stuff. Should be interesting. It's a nice little way to try to see what the appropriate value for different players at different positions are, and maybe the way they're viewed around the league. So we'll talk about all that right after the break. So stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare two different draft picks at the same position. And where I think, again, I don't know. I cannot see the future. Don't know exactly when players are going to get picked because people rise and fall every draft. It's hard to say exactly. But based on the general word or general rumblings or reports you're hearing about when people are going to get picked, I'm going to compare what I'd rather have this player in this round, or would I want this player or players in this round? And again, it's more not necessarily to say who's better or who's worse, because again, usually the guys that are first round projected picks are quote unquote better, but in terms of value and the things I can add to my team with having more picks already banked in before I get to this person, would I prefer to have one or the other? So, for example, Jordan Love. He is projected to be a first-round pick. Not exactly sure why. Personally, again, not to say I watched a whole lot of Utah State, but this seems... I mean, I heard his name floating around a little bit before, like, the Senior Bowl and all that stuff happened. People were bigging him up. In the same way, I guess, Mel Kiper was the big Josh Allen person a couple years ago, and saw what happened. Josh Allen went, I think, top 10. I think the Bills traded up to get him in, like, number 10, I believe it was. MSC, I mean, he made the playoffs, but he was kind of similar thing. Came from a small school, had his issues with interceptions, inaccuracy. A lot of people blamed, I don't want to say blame's not the right word, but a lot of people pointed to the fact that he had lesser talent around him. As for the reason why his numbers weren't as good as maybe they should have been. All that stuff. But it seems at least he's a guy that could very well be a first-round pick. I mean, again, he had good numbers his sophomore year. That's why he was he 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Over almost 3,600 yards, 64% completion percentage. And the following year, the junior, again, a lot of his team left. Had some different issues with line, different things. So the talent around him wasn't great. But only had 20 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. His yards per attempt went down by almost 1.5. His completion percentage went down by over 2 points. He threw for less yards and only third 400. So again, it's a similar thing because I know, not that I'm a draft expert. I don't try to be. Now, guy's going to watch film and rank players and all that stuff. But I remember, I looked back at Josh Allen a couple years because I was so curious about why everybody was so enamored by him, and he kind of had a similar thing where his numbers in college weren't eye-popping per se. Because, alright, he's had one good year out of 3. And then his rushing stats aren't that great. At least Josh Allen's rushing stats were pretty good. But yeah, he was just one of those things where alright, he has a lot of physical tools that you probably need to work on and mold. But actually, his complete percentage is better than Josh Allen's. Josh Allen's never had higher than 56.3 in his career. And never threw for over 30 touchdowns. So as a passer, he's a little bit better, but as a rusher, Josh Allen did a little bit more in terms of attempts and yardage. But yeah, it's just one of those things where he was a guy that you kind of were wondering, is this worth the pick? He has some McCann has some accuracy issues that may not ever go away. Very few players get better as you get into the pros. Usually they drop down a little bit, if anything. I mean, not that they're going to be bad, but they usually, assuming they don't just make everything simple for them, which, I mean, things have been for Josh Allen. They're not just going to get miraculously better or miraculously more accurate. And I know Josh Allen hasn't been great accurately. I mean, in terms of his accuracies, I think he's still in like the low 60s. But again, improved, got to the playoffs, all that fun stuff, blah blah. So would I rather have him take a chance on him in the first? Would I rather take a guy like Jalen Hurts on day 2? Not to say he's going to go in the second or the third. Don't really know, but he's not going to go in the first. I know that much. Do I want to take a chance on him? A guy who's been in 2 very prestigious programs, been at the highest level, won a national championship, been a part of another national championship team, played in big games, played in big bowl games, put up great numbers and good offenses. Obviously, I mean, the last 2 quarterbacks at Oklahoma both went number 1 overall, and I mean, Jalen Hurts wasn't that much worse than either of them at Oklahoma. His numbers at Oklahoma were pretty good, and you could see that he improved as a passer quite a bit from his time at Alabama. Threw for almost 4,000 yards this year, almost 700. I mean, it was 70% completion percentage. Threw for 32 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Also added in over 1,300 yards on the ground and 20 touchdowns. So again, not that much worse than Kyler or Baker were at Oklahoma, but I'm nowhere near talking about as a first-round pick. I'm not saying he should be, but he's obviously improved as a passer. And again, he's been at Oklahoma, who's put guys in the pros. He's been at Alabama, who their quarterbacks haven't been that good in the pros. At least he's been on the big stage, been in big games, so you don't have to worry about that with him. Jordan Love, not that matters per se, but you would like to think most teams, when you like to take the chance on guys that have performed well. Even a guy like Carson Wentz, who was from North Dakota State, but he'd been a part of 5 straight national championship teams, 3 as a backup, and then 2 as the starter. So you knew he could handle big games, even if it's not at the highest level of college football. You knew that. And again, he put up good numbers, even though he missed half the year, his, I guess, redshirt senior year with the wrist. Jordan Love didn't do that. And he put up good numbers as a sophomore, but a lot of people have one good year. And like I said, I didn't watch a lot of Utah State. I can't say exactly why his numbers took such a big dip, but they did. So I'm saying, is that a guy I want to bet because if you put in a first-round pick, that means you expect him to be the franchise quarterback at some point. Not exactly sure when, but at some point he's going to be your franchise quarterback. Do I want to take that risk when both these guys are probably going to need to sit a little bit? They're probably not going to be ready day 1. And unless because I know a lot of people kind of could try to compare him to either Josh Allen in terms of love or like Patrick Mahomes or somebody. Unless I have Andy Reid coaching up, I'm not sure Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes in most other offenses. Not to say he's not great, but again, the offense they run and the coaching that he's gotten probably help fine-tune some of that erratic behavior a little bit that he had at Texas Tech. That was allowed him to put up good numbers, but also, like I said, he never really won anything because he was a little too all over the place. But he was able to fine-tune that, kind of refine it, get it more controlled, and then you see what happens. MVP, Super Bowl champion. I'm not saying, like, if he goes to the Browns, does that same thing happen? If he goes to the Bears, does that same thing happen? I don't know. That's the thing. Situations matter as well. Because if you're taking Jordan Love in the first round, depending on where he goes, you might not have a quarterback in place that he can sit behind, learn from. Obviously, Mahomes had Alex Smith to learn from. Josh Allen didn't have anybody in that. And he's been fine, but Mahomes had Alex Smith to learn from, sit behind, study, all stuff. Jalen Hurts, if he gets picked in the second, third round, that means that whoever's picking him generally, or most likely, will have a quarterback in place. Even if it's like a Dak Prescott situation where the quarterback gets hurt and then he starts as a rookie. All right, but you had Tony Romo there, not expecting Dak to come in and be the starter, and they still tried to trade up for Paxton Lynch and Connor Cook. So the Cowboys weren't even sure about Dak either. I'd like to point that out. But yeah, so personally, I might take the chance not take the chance, but I might go with Jalen Hurts on like a day 2 where I can get a lineman, I can get him a receiver, I can get somebody on the defensive side to help out the team in that way, as opposed to if I'm choosing Jordan Love my first pick, that means I think at some point he's going to be my guy. you won't have that same stake in Jalen Hurts. You take him in the second and third round. You think he could be good. Again, if you're picking him, you think he's going to contribute to your team in some way. But you don't need him to be good today. Jordan Love, you pick him in the first round, especially depending on where you pick him, you need him to be good almost as soon as possible. And I just don't know if he could. I'm not sure if he's that guy yet. Not to say he can't grow into that, but as what I've seen right now, what I've heard, I'm not sure if he's ready to be that guy just yet. Again, I don't know if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have the success he has. I don't even know if people are looking at Jordan Love. And even with that, the numbers Patrick Mahomes put up at Texas Tech, the numbers Jordan Love put up at Utah State, not all the same. Again, you could say quality and all that stuff, but it's not like Texas Tech has had like all these great receivers post Michael Crabtree. I mean, let me know who he was throwing to that is a big time star in the NFL, because I don't know them. Maybe I missed it. Something the whole surrounding casting works and it doesn't. Because you can't use it to knock guys like Tua, or people like to talk down on Joe Burrow. He had all these great guys, but then use it to be like, oh, this guy had no one around him. So which one is it? It's like, so you need to have an average supporting cast and prop them up. You can't, if your supporting cast is too good, then if you're good, it's a bad thing. If your supporting cast is bad and you're bad, then it doesn't matter. It's kind of, you can't have it. It seems like a weird thing to do. But yeah, so I think I'm leaning a little bit more towards Jalen Hurts. Another one would be Grant Delpit. It was again a safety that got the Jim Thorpe Award this past year, though maybe he didn't deserve it because he's not. You could argue wasn't even the best defensive back on his own team, let alone in the country. But he got it. Can't knock that. Had some struggles this year, especially with tackling. Though he played through some injury, that was his choice. He didn't have to, but he did. Respect it. I respect the toughness. But again, the film, a little shaky, especially the missed tackles, some of the angles he took. Again, maybe that's because he was hurt. I don't know. But again, if you're just going off the film last year, because his film 2 years ago was very good, the film last year, not exactly as great. So it's like, am I going to take a chance on him in round one, or do I want guys like Jeremy Chin or Kyle Duggar, who are smaller school guys, but guys that obviously put together much better years coming in than, like I said, than a guy like Grant Delpit. I know Jeremy Chin last year, who's I think Southern Illinois, I believe, is where he's from. Obviously had a very, very good combine as well. 6'3", 221, ran 4.45, 41-inch vert, 138 broad jump. So quite the athlete. But he put together quite the year. He was a consensus All-American. And I think, what was he? I don't know, Southern Illinois was like D2? Well, FCS, I believe, or it's FCS. He's finished his career with over 200 tackles, 13 interceptions, 31 pass defenders, 6 forced fumbles. Was very good at the Senior Bowl. So yeah, it's like, all right, do I want to take the risk on Grant Delpit, or do I want to take a guy like Jeremy Chin, who's probably going to be there in the second round? No one knows. Maybe he'll rise to the first, but the way safeties have been drafted the past few years, it doesn't seem like he's going to be 100% locked into that first round spot. Because you see guys like Derwin James, who lasted till 17 in his draft, it's hard to say for certain if he's going to be like when and where people get drafted these days. But yeah, so I want him, or like I said, like a Kyle Duggar, who, again, it's hard to find. Oh yes, no. The stats on these websites aren't really that great. I don't know why. But yeah, so do I want him or do I want a Grant Delpit? I'll keep Duggar out of this, though. He's another small school guy, Lenore Ryan, I believe. Small safety, great athlete, big guy. Can do all the things Grant Delpit can do, but also put together a better film this year. And again, don't want to say for certain what it was, but these could be guys that I might want instead of Delpit, just because I know that they're coming off of better seasons, so I might have more faith. And also, may not have to pick them in the first round, which is a big thing. A first round pick is a big investment in any player, no matter the position. So it's like, which one do you want? I might go Chin on that one. And then another one, the last one I'll do. I don't want this to go on forever. It's like, do I want a guy like Denzel Mims, who was probably a second, third round pick, based off the film and everything and his stats before the a combine where obviously he ran like in the 4.3s at like 6'3", that perks people's ears up, that gets them to look at the film a little bit differently when you know that. And again, it's shorts and a t-shirt. Shouldn't really boost draft stock that much. So do I want a guy like him who's probably going to go in the first round at some point, probably late first round, but I think could very well go in the first round. Or a guy like Michael Pittman from USC, who is a big guy as well, ran a 4.52, so not slow. Caught over 100 balls for over like 1,200 yards at USC this past year, and obviously comes from a system where their offensive coordinator, or the guy calling the plays, Graham Harrell, he's been in the NFL. He's been around the block a little bit in terms of different offenses, different schemes, different ideas. So he has an idea of he has an idea of like what kind of routes, what kind of concepts are going to be useful in the pros. And I have to say that Denzel Mims didn't have a great year this last year. Had over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns. His quarterback play was a little iffy, though I know the year before his numbers were a little shaky, though he claimed that he played with a broken hand. So whether or not that's smart or not is whatever, but I know he had some drops. I believe he had 11 drops as a junior and then brought it down to 5 as a senior. So obviously you can tell maybe the hand was an issue, but for Pittman, he had only 5 drops in his whole career. And he has a big body guy, ran probably a little bit more routes, and utilized his body well. And Mims, though great, Baylor receiver has ever translated outside of Josh Gordon, and he was good for 2 years before the whole drug thing caught up with him, unfortunately, which is a shame now because he wouldn't get suspended for that now. But he was then. It is what it is. But yeah, I mean, you look at Corey Coleman, hasn't panned out. Kendall Rice hasn't panned out. Not to say that you can't have guys like that, because if you think that way, then you don't have people don't draft. You wouldn't have Saquon Barkley going as high as he did. You wouldn't have Miles Sanders going in the second round. Both guys that were Penn State. Kind of talked about how Penn State doesn't produce good running backs. But then you have back-to-back years in which you have guys that were some of the best of their position as rookies, come from a school that can't produce running backs in the NFL. So you don't want to just hold that against them if people before him were bad. Because again, it's not his fault, and he could be the exception, not necessarily the rule. But again, for whatever reason, like whether it's not like they don't have to run as many routes, they don't have to do as much things, they don't have to study as many things, they don't have to understand as many concepts or whatever. Baylor receivers have had struggles translating to the NFL game, and not just them, other receivers as a whole, just because, again, the college game is so simplified in terms of the routes and the concepts, in terms of what people are asked to do. They're only asked to run a certain amount of routes. They can only be asked to line up on certain sides. I know that was a big thing with Kevin White coming out of West Virginia years ago, was that he basically lined up on one side of the field the whole time, and in the NFL that's just not going to happen. And he had also injuries, things that kind of derailed him, but I know he had his struggles early in his career, and obviously hasn't panned out yet. But then you have guys like Bashard Perriman, who took some time, had some injuries, but then obviously this past year with the Bucks played great. Probably that into at least another prove a deal with the Jets. And then if he goes well, then things could go well from there. So again, it all kind of depends. But yeah, so it's like, would I rather go Denzel Mims in the first or Pittman in the second or the third? Could just because, again, he's not as fast, and that's why his stock drops a little bit, though. The numbers are great. You catch over 100 balls in college. I don't care who you are. That's an exceptional feat for anybody. And like I said, he's a big body, 6'4". Not many receivers are that size. And like I said, knows how to utilize his body well, can good in contested catches, doesn't really drop the ball. It's always the idea you don't. That's what your receivers want most. You don't want them to drop the ball. So that's a tough one. I don't know. I could see people leaning Mims, and I might leave Mims in this one just because he probably has that star potential. You have a guy that's 6'3" with 4.3 speed that just doesn't grow on trees. That's not a common thing. I suppose you have a lot of guys that are big and can't really run away from people, and that's what you kind of worry about in the NFL, just not being able to separate, because again, you have to have that speed, and at least with Mims, he has that speed, and also he's shown the ability to get open down the field, which is a key component in today's game. While Pittman, while he may be able to catch stuff underneath and be a jump ball guy, if you can't get that separation, it's going to be hard for you because the defensive backs are going to be better in the pros than they were in the Pac-12. So I might lean Mims on that one, but it's just interesting concept just to think about, like, guys and their value compared to what you could get later on. Because not that, again, all those guys in the first round aren't bad players at all. They're first-round picks or will be first-round picks for a reason. But you'll always see guys, no matter the position, later on in the draft be just as productive, if not more productive, than them at the same position. So it's always interesting to kind of compare, like, which one would you prefer if you can get a guy in the third round and get two other good players for your team, as opposed to going for a guy in the first round at that same position you could have gotten in the third round and gotten a player just as good, and now you have to wait later on to get some other positions to your team that you may need just as badly as you needed this one position that you needed in the first round. So it is an interesting game. Play it with yourself. Compare it with like other quarterbacks, running backs, corners, pass rushers, offensive linemen, whoever. It's a linebacker. It's an interesting game to play and just try to get your comparisons. If you will, just kind of compare and contrast, like, which one would you rather have? Because, like I said, every year you'll see guys drafted too high, see guys drafted too low. And drafting is not an exact science. Very rarely does everybody hit on everything. But it's just interesting to see where guys end up kind of slotted after the chips fall in a couple of years, to see, like, oh, wow, if you redraft, where would this guy go? Would he go higher? Would he go lower? So that's kind of just what I'm doing now. It's just like, do I think it's a better use of my resource to draft this guy in round 1 or draft this other guy in round 2, 3, potentially even 4, depending on who you're comparing him to. But yeah, I suggest you guys do play that with yourself. So just to bide your time until the NFL draft takes place. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast. Now, I want to thank you guys all for listening. As always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a review. Very appreciate it. It's very helpful. I'll see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, ways you can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, so you can find us there: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss, talk about all the different aspects of the Last Dance documentary. Talk about trade rumors, different trades you may think that'll take place, whether before the draft or during the draft. You do your own would you rather kind of thing. Also, tell me why you think Sabrina Ionescu is going to be a star in the NBA, or you don't really care because you don't like watching women's sports. To each his own. No judgment here. Well, yeah, when we're ready to talk, we can discuss all of that on social media, so you can find us there. But that'll do it for me here today. I've been Chris Blades. I want to thank you for listening. As always, that has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.